McDonald's sells 70 million burgers, fries, and Happy Meals a day, and almost none of that is where the real money comes from. Here's the part that doesn't make sense. Over 95% of McDonald's restaurants aren't even owned by McDonald's. They're owned by independent operators who put up their own money, hire their own staff, and take on the risk if a location fails. So if McDonald's isn't selling the food and isn't running the stores, what exactly is the company getting paid for? The answer is the same answer a former McDonald's CFO gave decades ago, and it's stranger than it sounds. We're going to walk through exactly how this business actually makes its money, and by the end, you'll understand why one of the most recognizable brands on earth isn't really in the business you think it's in. The mechanism. Let's start with the part almost nobody thinks about when they see the arches. McDonald's buys the land, or it secures a long-term lease on it, then it turns around and rents that same land to the franchisee who's about to open a restaurant on top of it. Not a favor, not a formality, a steep ongoing rental fee. And here's the detail that changes everything about how you should think about this company. That rent gets paid whether the restaurant is thriving or barely surviving. A slow month for burgers is still a full month of rent. A location that's struggling to hit its food sales targets is still writing the same rent check as the location down the road doing record numbers. McDonald's isn't betting on your burger sales, it's collecting regardless. That's not a side detail of the business, that's tens of billions of dollars in prime real estate held by one corporation across locations it picked specifically because they'd be valuable. But if the corporation is the landlord, someone else has to be the tenant taking on the risk. The franchising engine. Here's the number that should stop you. More than 95% of McDonald's locations globally are run by people who don't work for McDonald's, independent operators. People who've put millions of their own capital into opening a single store, hiring the staff, and running it day to day. They're the ones who feel it when wages go up. They're the ones who feel it when a slow quarter hits. They're the ones exposed to every local cost that could go wrong. Meanwhile, the corporation is collecting from three directions at once: an upfront franchise fee to get in the door, a royalty, a cut of ongoing sales, and the rent we just talked about landing every single month regardless of how the store is doing. Three separate income streams, one of them completely insulated from whether the food itself sells. This is why McDonald's can survive a bad year for burgers in a way most restaurant chains can't. It was never really exposed to the burgers in the first place, which raises an obvious question. If the model is built this well, who's actually steering it? Management. 1965. No, wrong company. Let's go to 2019. That's the year Chris Kempczynski takes over as CEO, stepping in after the previous CEO's departure. He'd joined McDonald's only 4 years earlier in strategy and business development and moved up fast, running the day-to-day of roughly 14,000 US restaurants before he ever got the top job. Then COVID hits. The second quarter of 2020 becomes the single worst quarter in McDonald's history, and by the fourth quarter of that same year, sales are already back to pre-pandemic levels. That recovery didn't happen by accident. Kempczynski built the company's strategy around three pillars: maximize the marketing, commit to the core menu, and double down on what McDonald's calls the 3Ds: digital, delivery, and drive-through. Every one of those three pillars is, quietly, a way of protecting the real estate model we just described. Digital and drive-through don't just sell more burgers, they move more transactions through the same physical footprint McDonald's already owns. The strategy makes sense on paper, but strategy on paper doesn't mean anything if the numbers don't back it up. The numbers. Here's the test that actually matters. Return on invested capital, 10 years, every single year above 10%. McDonald's has cleared that bar every year for a decade, and for 9 of those 10 years, it's been above 15%. That's not typical. Most consumer-facing businesses would kill for that kind of consistency. The reason comes back to everything we've already covered. Franchisees are the ones paying for equipment, staff, and build-out. McDonald's is collecting royalties and rent with comparatively little capital going back out the door. Free cash flow tells the same story, positive every year for 10 straight years, but 2024 breaks that streak of pure consistency. ROIC dipped slightly, free cash flow dipped too. Higher spending on new restaurants, a modest decline in margin, and, we'll get to this, a food safety scare that hit right in the middle of the year. Both of these things are true at once. The model is proven over a decade, and the most recent year shows real cracks starting to form. So which one do you trust? The 10-year trend, or the year that just happened? Debt. Here's a number that doesn't get talked about enough: 4.71. That's how many years of McDonald's earnings it would take to pay off its total long-term debt based on current numbers. The rule of thumb most analysts want to see is under 3 years. McDonald's is well past it. Some of that debt didn't fund new restaurants, it funded stock buybacks, the company borrowing money specifically to return cash to shareholders. On its own, that number should worry you. But here's the detail that changes the read on it. This isn't a company with unpredictable revenue trying to cover unpredictable debt. Royalties and rent are about as stable as cash flow gets, the kind of income that keeps arriving even when the broader economy slows down. That doesn't erase the risk. 4.71 years is still 4.71 years. It just means the company covering that debt is one of the most predictable cash generators in the entire consumer sector. Predictable, though, is not the same as untouchable, and there are three separate forces working against this business right now. The outside pressure. The first force is the economy itself. In 2024, McDonald's flagged something specific: transaction sizes shrinking among lower-income customers in the US. Not fewer visits, smaller orders, people still walking through the door, buying less once they're inside. In the UK, it's worse. Reduced spending during breakfast hours specifically, right as a local competitor sharpens its pricing to fight for exactly that customer. Across Europe, the same pattern: families and low-income households pulling back, industry-wide traffic falling, not just for McDonald's, for the entire quick service category. The second force is competition, and it's not coming from where you'd expect. It's not another burger chain, it's the grocery store. Management has pointed directly at this. Eating at home has become cheaper, partly because packaged food prices have stopped swinging as wildly as they were. So the exact customer McDonald's needs most, the value-conscious one, is increasingly deciding the better deal is their own kitchen. Two pressures, same customer, same direction. But there's a third risk, and it isn't external at all. It's sitting inside the product itself. The incident: 2024, an E. coli outbreak in the United States. The source: slivered onions, used in one specific item, the Quarter Pounder, not a random menu item. One of the most profitable things McDonald's sells. US sales dropped in the aftermath, and because the Quarter Pounder carries disproportionate margin, the hit to profitability was worse than the sales numbers alone suggest. Management's response was value promotions and digital offers, aimed squarely at winning customers back. But here's the detail worth sitting with. McDonald's has some of the most sophisticated food safety systems in the industry, running across a global supply chain built over decades. And it still happened. In a world where one social media post can carry a local incident to a global audience within hours, the reputational risk isn't proportional to the size of the actual outbreak. It never has to be. So, a real estate model built for stability, a debt load that's manageable but real, three live risks pressing on it from every direction. Does the business still hold up? Where this leaves us: McDonald's isn't just holding steady, it's still expanding. 2024's global development targets were hit. The company remains on track for 50,000 restaurants by the end of 2027, up from just over 43,000 today. For 2025 alone, roughly 1,800 net new restaurants planned, around 1,000 of those in China. That kind of unit growth is expected to add more than 2% to system-wide sales on its own, before a single existing store sells one more burger. And the new locations aren't random. Early data shows first-year returns in the low to mid-teens on freestanding drive-through builds, solid by any industry standard, and evidence the expansion is being placed with intent, not just chased for growth's sake. Both of these things are true at once. The pressure from the economy, from competition, from the incident in 2024, that's all real. And the underlying engine, the rent, the royalties, the franchise model insulating the corporation from most of the operational risk, that machine is still running and still expanding. At current numbers, shares sit around $201. Based on a 10-cap free cash flow approach, that works out to roughly a 25% discount to intrinsic value. That's not a recommendation, it's a data point, more one piece of a much bigger picture sitting alongside everything else you just heard about debt, risk, and where the pressure is actually coming from. I'm not going to pretend I know for certain how this plays out. Nobody serious does. But now you know what you're actually looking at. Not a burger company that happens to own some buildings. A real estate company that happens to sell burgers. Should you find content of this nature engaging, we invite you to subscribe to Wealth Escape. We anticipate our next interaction.